This is a podcast about understanding counselling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore how boundaries shape relationships, often without being spoken about directly. Most relationships difficulties are not caused by lack of care or poor intentions. They are caused by boundaries that are unclear, mismatched, or quietly shifting over time. People rarely argue about boundaries themselves. They argue about the effects of boundaries being crossed, stretched, or misunderstood. Boundaries in relationships are not fixed rules. They are ongoing adjustments around closeness, availability, and responsibility. They determine how much space feels comfortable, how much contact feels supportive, and how much emotional load feels manageable. Think about closeness first. In any relationship, there's an unspoken negotiation about how close is close enough, how often you talk, how much you share, how quickly you respond. When boundaries around closeness are aligned, relationships tend to feel easy. When they are misaligned, tension builds quietly. One person may feel connected through frequent contact, another may feel connected through reliability rather than frequency. Neither approach is wrong, but if the difference is not recognized, one person may feel crowded while the other feels neglected. Have you noticed how easy this kind of misunderstanding can develop? I sure have. Distance is the other side of this. Boundaries also determine how much space feels safe rather than threatening. Some people regulate well with time alone, others experience distance as disconnection. When space is taken without explanation, it can be misread as rejection rather than regulation. Responsibility plays a major role here as well. In many relationships, one person gradually takes on more emotional responsibility. They anticipate needs, manage moods, remember details, and smooth over difficulties. This often happens slowly and without discussion. Over time, it can lead to imbalance. When responsibility becomes uneven, resentment often appears. Not because someone is ungrateful, but because a boundary has been crossed repeatedly. The person carrying more load may feel depleted. The other may feel confused when tension emerges. Do you notice where responsibility tends to fail in your relationships? Boundaries also shape how conflict unfolds. When boundaries are clear, disagreement can occur without threatening the relationship itself. When boundaries are unclear, conflict can feel destabilizing. People may avoid addressing issues to preserve closeness or escalate quickly to protect space. This links back to what we explored earlier around emotional regulation. When boundaries are repeatedly stretched, regulation has to work harder. People become more reactive, less patient, or more withdrawn. What looks like a communication problem is often a boundary issue underneath. Relationships also change over time, and boundaries need to adjust accordingly. Life stages, stress, health, and external pressures all affect capacity. A boundary that worked at one point may no longer fit. When boundaries are not renegotiated, strain builds without obvious cause. In counseling, relationship patterns are often explored by paying attention to these boundary dynamics, not by deciding who is right or who is wrong, but by noticing how closeness, distance, and responsibility are being managed. Counseling helps bring awareness to patterns that are usually felt rather than articulated. Importantly, boundaries are not becoming distant or self-focused. They allow relationships to remain sustainable. Without boundaries, people often oscillate between over-involvement and withdrawal. With boundaries, connection can be maintained without exhaustion. You can often recognize boundary strain in everyday signs. Feeling relieved when plans are cancelled, feeling tense when the phone rings, feeling responsible for how conversations end. These reactions are not random, they point to how boundaries are operating. Understanding how boundaries shape relationships shifts the focus away from blame. Instead of asking who is causing the problem, it becomes possible to ask what the relationship is asking of each person and whether that demand is manageable. In the next episode, we'll bring this closer to the counseling process itself by exploring how boundaries operate within a counseling relationship and why that structure helps make relational patterns clearer rather than more complicated. That's the scope of this episode. Each episode focuses on one specific theme, and this was it. We'll leave it there for now and move on in the next episode.